Hello there everyone and welcome back to episode 3 of From Start to Finish. If you guys are new, essentially what this series is, I take a smaller sized mock and essentially bring you guys along throughout the whole build process. So it's just like my larger mock update videos, except for the mock's a lot smaller, and I take you guys from the beginning where it's just plain base plates all the way through to the end of the build. So that's kind of the idea for this series. For this episode we're going to be focusing on, once again, World War II, and it's going to be the Eastern Front. So we've got a battle between the German military and the Russian military here. So we've got a very exciting build to create. We've got one scene. I've kind of got a little bit of this mock already built, as you can see in the frame right here, but it's a very exciting episode. So without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here's the quick layout that I'll run through real quick. Sorry for a lot of the mess around the area. I've got a lot of projects going on. Still have this built from the last From Start to Finish episode, so check that Pacific battle out if you haven't already. But here we are right now with this build. It's going to be an Eastern Front build. Like I mentioned in the intro, going to take place during Operation Barbarossa in the summer of 1941. So we're going to have the Germans on the offensive here, and we're going to have the Soviets defending this kind of entrance to a village area. So you can see I've already got a trench right there. We'll have like kind of a bunker position and an MG position for like a DP-28 with like a couple of Russians right there. You can see back there in that square, that's going to be like a little farmhouse, I think. And then this line right here of 1x1s, I was outlining it. I'm going to create that as a fence. So there's going to be like kind of a damaged fence where all of these Russian troops will be taking cover behind this damaged fence and shooting out at the Germans. And then, of course, like this bombed out farm, there'll be some troops in there as well. And there might be a path or something in here too, leading into theoretically the rest of the village. Over on this side, you can see I've started to already do a tree. I'll talk about that later. But this is kind of where the German assault will take place. So we've got a Panzer III from Brick Arms back there. So that'll be kind of leading the assault. And up in this area will be terrain and maybe a crater or a foxhole or something like that. And then right here where this tree's at, I want to kind of have a line of trees as if it's like the start to a forest. But yeah, that's the plan. Germans assaulting through the woods into this field, and then we'll have the village, entrance to the village over here. So that's the quick, rough plan. Now let's get on to building. This is going to be fun. Let's do it. Alright guys, so I've been working a lot here on this forest area, and as you can see, I've got some interesting stuff going on. So what I've done back here is I've got some of these bush pieces, and I've put a bunch of smaller green leaf pieces and used this kind of pinkish kind of flower piece, and I've put that on the end of a lot of the little small grass pieces, and I've also tucked a lot of them in there to kind of create this kind of bright, kind of pink, colorful bush area, if that makes sense. So that's what I've kind of got going here, kind of like a blossom, very natural place right there. And then I've actually got a couple more trees in here. We've got one way in the back right here, which I started to run out of pieces, so I had to use a different green color for it. And then another tree is right back there, and another one right there. So we've actually got 4 trees in total, and I'm definitely liking the way they are looking. It's kind of hard to see them right now. I'll have to adjust some of the things on the table here so it'll be a little easier for you guys to see, but this is what I've got going so far for the trees. And then back over here we've got more of those grass pieces that I showed you earlier, and I used up the rest of my kind of pink flower pieces and kind of created a little bush area right here. Ideally, if I had a lot more, I'd like to make this area a lot bigger, but this is all I've got left, so I just wanted to include it in the back part of the mop, and we've got a back part of the mock, and we've got a Panzer Grenadier behind there as well. So, and then another small dirt patch back there that kind of ties back in with this final tree, and then I've just got some figures placed to kind of give you guys an idea of what exactly I'm thinking. Alright, so the next thing that I have done here is created a kind of fence area. So when I was talking earlier about what I wanted to do with the mock, I kind of imagined a kind of wooden fence going across the front of the village kind of area where the Russian troops would be hiding behind a fence, kind of taking cover behind of it. So behind it, so this is what I've kind of got so far, essentially using some modified bricks on the back right there, and then attaching a bunch of tiles, these reddish brown tiles, to those modified bricks to create kind of the smooth fenced off design. And then I've put a tile on top as well, so fairly simple design. Here is what it looks like on the mock right here. So ideally we've got the Russian troops kind of taking cover behind it, and then the fence would go all the way down kind of like this, and there's kind of a minifigure for size comparison right there for what we're looking at, kind of big enough for him to kind of peek over with his rifle. and shoot out, and then also small enough so where troops can kind of crouch behind it as well. But there's kind of what the fence design will look like right there. Something else that I'm messing around with here is kind of a cobblestone path. As you can see, I've started doing that over here with some 1x1 studs in dark gray and light gray, and then the kind of smoothed off studs as well. I've used this a lot of these pieces in a lot of my other MOCs, but I wanted to kind of use them here in this one because I want to use, I mean, ideally I'd normally use like 1x1 plates and 1x1 tiles and all sorts of different things, but I'm only going to use studs for this one because that's all I have left, because all my other ones are on my Mutalisk MOC right now, so these are the only parts I have available to use for this cobblestone path. So this is what I've kind of got so far, and that'll kind of go out through this area, and then it'll be kind of broken up right here, and then continue to go to the rest of kind of the MOC that way towards like the village entrance, if that makes sense. But this is what I've kind of got going so far. Not my favorite, so I'm going to kind of modify it a little bit and continue it a little bit later. It's also a design that, if you guys know Molygode on YouTube and Instagram, he used to make, I mean, he still makes really cool products, but he used to make a lot of World War II scenes, and he would use this design quite a bit on his MOCs. So I've kind of taken inspiration from a lot of his older awesome videos. So that's what I've kind of got going on right here. But this kind of goes along the fence area right here, and this will be the main line of defense for the Russians right here as they try to defend against the invading German forces. Alright guys, so I've done a lot more work here, and I've actually started to change up a lot of the plans and overall design for the MOC. So I showed you guys kind of all this area up here. Another thing that I worked on is this kind of dark tan dirt mound, or yeah, I guess dark tan dirt mound kind of up against this spot right up here, using a bunch of different slopes and plate pieces as well. And finally, this trench is kind of the main thing I worked on, so I expanded on this, made it a lot bigger, and made it kind of a little more wider and kind of longer, and it kind of goes more in this way. If you remember, I wanted to have some sort of house structure right there. I'm not sure if I still want to do that or not. I was starting to realize how much like reddish brown it was going to be, and I wasn't sure how it would look for a color scheme, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it look really good, so I'm kind of reorganizing, trying to think what to put over in that area. But I have been working a lot on this trench. Nothing too crazy here, just using those kind of 1x2 log pieces that I've used before for some trenches, and kind of making some tiles. So you notice each section is kind of connected by a 1x4 tile to give it kind of that interesting textured look in between each section of the logs, so it kind of connects in these interesting shapes and sizes and stuff like that. It's not quite finished yet, but I've got the overall shape that I really like and stuff like that. And then I set up some figures to kind of show you guys how big it is in a size reference and what it might look like. And then I've also got some terrain that I showed you guys earlier, but I've kind of built it up both ways so it looks good from this back side and the front side. But this is kind of what I've got going so far for the trench. A little more work left to do, but here's kind of the design that I was using. So again, using those 1x2 log pieces, and then on top using a 1x4 tile piece. So then when you connect the two of them, as I kind of messed up my formation, but when you connect the two of them, you can kind of create an interesting texture pattern to just give it some more depth and make it look a little more interesting instead of just stacking these things on each other the whole time. So that's kind of what I got going so far for this trench. I'm going to continue to work on the MOC overall, and I will update you guys when I have some more progress. Alright guys, so we are here on the back kind of side of the MOC, and earlier I was talking about how I didn't really know what to put back here anymore. What I've come up with is a pretty simple thing, but I think it works decently. At least I'm kind of running out of time in order to get this video out when I'm hoping to, but essentially I've thought of an idea of doing like a concrete blockade, if that makes sense, of like concrete pillars that were kind of placed as kind of tank traps, if that makes sense, or tank blocks, so like a tank couldn't go through. But essentially they're pieces of concrete, and I've used the kind of technique of using 1x2s and these cylinder pieces, and you can actually create kind of a circular shape with them, and you can bend them a whole bunch of different ways, and that's kind of what I did over here. And then back here I've got a couple more of those kind of concrete blockade pillar thingies back there. And we've got a sniper back there, but we've got a couple rows of them to kind of indicate that there's a bunch of concrete fortifications here to try to stop a tank if it were to get in this far. So that's what I've kind of got going on. And here is the wide shot that we've got going on for the Russian defense area. And essentially the new things that I've added was these concrete defenses right here that I just showed you, where we might have a gunner position right there. And then theoretically this would kind of go on throughout the city. I added in more path right there. Something else I did was add in a bunch of olive green to the dark tan, as you can see. One of the reasons I did that was I felt like the dark tan wasn't really, not that everything needs to stick out in a build, but I felt like it was feeling very bland with just the dark tan, so I decided to go ahead and add in a bunch of olive green to kind of give it a different color pattern or feel, if that makes sense. That way it just looks a little more interesting than just entirely dark tan. So I think the olive green adds a little bit more to the kind of terrain in this area. So I do think that was a good change. Hopefully it looks a little bit better now than it did earlier. I just think it helps it stand out more and look a little bit better in terms of a color palette. So this is the Russian kind of defense area. I guess I also extended the kind of fence area all the way to the back, so now it goes all the way across. One small detail over here on this side of the MOC with the Panzer III is I put a tree over there that kind of fell down, and some leaves and branches and things like that in there. And the kind of idea is this Panzer just plowed right through a smaller tree right there, kind of making it collapse. And I've now placed the Panzer III kind of on the tree, if that makes sense. So it's kind of angled a little bit, which I thought would be kind of cool and give it some more dynamic range and movement to make it seem like it's kind of running over uneven terrain instead of it just being flat. And then of course this poor Russian who's right there with his PPSH is gonna try to sit there, and who knows what he's gonna do against the tank. But yeah, thought that would be a cool little detail, having a collapsed tree and having a Panzer III kind of running it over. Alright, and one thing I did go ahead and do right here is add in a little bit more terrain of dark tan and reddish brown on the other side of the fence here, because it was looking pretty flat and I really like the idea of the terrain kind of going up and kind of right up against the fence area. So that's what I've done. Right here is worked on some terrain. Alright guys, and here is a wide shot of the entire MOC. I'm going to go ahead and walk through and give you guys a close-up on some of the figures. You've kind of already seen the whole entire build. Right off the bat, overall, I want to say a big lesson learned was I kind of overextended myself for this episode. Overall with the MOC, I'm not as happy with it as I am for like the past two MOCs that I've done for this series. I think I overextended myself with this one. You can see I've still got the Pacific one built, and I've got Munilus and a couple other projects being built right now, and I kind of ran out of parts in terms of like part selection for this particular build, and I kind of just did not have the pieces available that I kind of had in mind when I started this, and halfway through I realized I made this thing too big and I overextended myself. Normally I wouldn't have a problem with it, but since I've got so many other projects going on, kind of made a mistake and made this one a little too big. So that's just a lesson for you guys. Be careful. It's good to be ambitious, but sometimes a little over-ambition can get to you. But regardless of all that, I am still very happy with the way this MOC turned out, and I think it does look pretty epic. So I guess we'll go ahead and get on to some close-ups of the battle. First up, we've got the Germans here attacking the Soviets' position. And we'll start with the tree line. You guys saw the trees. I wanted to kind of make it a mini forest, and you can see back there we've got a German officer with the summer oak leaf pattern with an MP40 kind of directing some men around, telling them to get up there and charge up to the front. Over there we've got our Panzer Grenadiers kind of taking cover behind the Panzer III and getting ready to move up. And we've got those bushes. This might be my favorite addition to the MOC, is those bushes back there. I really do like kind of those bright pink color pieces. I think they look really good as kind of like a bush. And we've got another German back there peeking over those bushes and shooting over at the Soviets' position. And over here we've got our MG34 position right here, two summer oak leaf SS guys over here from Minifig Co. I absolutely love these minifigures. So one guy right here is a gunner with an MG34, and I put that kind of muzzle flash and tracer unit right there. We've got another SS guy back there loading his Kar 98, and of course the bushes kind of as a cool backdrop. I thought this was a cool little spot with the gunner position and everything like that. Over here on the left side of the MOC we've got our Panzer III. I built from some instructions from Brickmania, their Operation Barbarossa booklet with all their tank instructions. So I built a Panzer III And we've got a crewman up there with a Luger coming out of the top hatch. One fun thing I did have to have was some sort of interesting hand-to-hand combat. I always love having that in MOC. So we've got this random Russian who's charged forward with a pickaxe. So he was one of the Russians that had to dig the trench in the back of the MOC right here, and then he just ended up charging up here with his pickaxe, and he's kind of meleeing this German right there. The German's kind of grabbing on, trying to stop him from taking him out with that pickaxe, kind of playing on the whole how the Russians would sometimes charge without rifles. That's kind of where that is from, but I also thought it was a cool melee moment right there for that Russian. Next up, we've got our Soviet line of defense, kind of taking cover behind this wooden fence area. All sorts of Russians taking cover, yelling at each other, some peeking over. We can see that MP40 German soldier right there peeking over the mound. I thought this was pretty cool. I've a curved arm from, I think, Crazy Bricks is the company name that makes those kind of curved arms. He's kind of peeking over, about ready to spray all of them with his MP40. But hopefully that Soviet with the Mosin-Nagant will be able to stop him. Over here we've got a Russian who is down on the ground, and again a little bit of that red flowers to make it look like blood work. Kind of like he's bleeding out down there. Over here we've got our concrete defense positions, kind of like a tank trap area. So we've got a machine gunner with a DP-28. He's kind of their machine gun position, hopefully able to stop some of these Germans from advancing. He's got some good cover. Next to him is a Soviet officer. I kind of ran out of Russian minifigures here, so the trench is not very populated. Ideally, I'd like to have a couple more guys in here, but we've got another sniper guy right here. I actually really love this look right here. Torso is just like one of the Resistance fighters from Star Wars, the sequels, and he's got a Mosin-Nagant and just a helmet. I just like that kind of bare bones setup. Over here I've got another PPSH gunner right here peeking over the trench and firing at the Germans, trying to cover his squad. So that's about it. I do think my favorite part of the MOC overall is this fence area. I think it turned out really, really good. I'm happy. I had an image in my head that I was trying to follow, and I think it turned out pretty well with the fence kind of going all the way through this front area for the Soviets to have a good line of defense. And there's some cool angles you can get in here. I'm looking over the shoulder on some of these guys. Alright guys, but I think that is it for this MOC. Here's just another wide shots for the actual build. I think there's some really cool elements in this MOC, and again, the terrain style I used, if we look at it from eye level here, gives a whole nother perspective to the terrain, and that's kind of why I like using this type of terrain and structure for battles. I think it works really well for historical battles, in particular World War II right here, so pretty happy with the build overall. I think there's a lot of things I can improve on and some things I wasn't able to include that I really wanted to include, but overall I had a ton of fun creating a World War II Eastern Front MOC. I've always wanted to do something like this. Definitely expect some more World War II builds. I think I'm definitely going to need to take apart some of my other projects like that over there so I have enough pieces to actually do something really cool, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this build nonetheless. Overall, not as proud of it as I could be, or as I want to be. It didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted to, but I'm still happy with it. Still had a lot of fun. I still think it looks good. So that's about it for this build, guys. Yeah, I had a ton of fun. Let's go ahead and move on to the outro. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you did enjoy. As always, leave your feedback in the comment section below on what you thought of the episode and what you thought of the build overall. Again, not my kind of most favorite build out of the three that I've made so far. I think I went a little bit too large with this build, so this was a little bit of a learning curve of I definitely started to overextend myself with what pieces I had left available to work on this MOC while working on a bunch of other projects as well. So this was a valuable lesson for me, and hopefully some of you guys can learn a thing from that as well, to where this is kind of what happens when you get a little bit too ambitious. It's good to be ambitious, but I went a little bit too ambitious with this MOC potentially, but I'm still proud of it. I still had a lot of fun building a Eastern Front MOC because I'd love to study this part of World War II, and I find it very, very interesting. So I had a ton of fun building this MOC. I'm going to go a little smaller for the next from start to finish build, but I'm planning to do something from the Napoleonic era. I kind of want to do a winter kind of battle, something to do with the winter battle in 1812 maybe, or something like that. I've got a couple ideas, so that's kind of my plan for the next episode. Regardless, if you have any cool ideas for any themes or particular historical events or battles you want me to cover on from start to finish, definitely let me know in the comment section below. But in the meantime, Make sure to check out all of my Munilisc mock update videos and live streams. They're a ton of fun, and I have been really enjoying making those videos, so definitely go check those out if you're interested. As always, leave your feedback in the comment section below. Hope you guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.